Emma never planned on getting a pet. Living alone in her small apartment on the outskirts of town, she had enough trouble keeping her houseplants alive. But fate had other plans on that rainy October evening when she found the peculiar creature huddled beneath a cardboard box in the alley behind her building. At first glance, she thought it was just an unusually large cat with silvery gray fur. But as she approached, holding her umbrella against the wind, she noticed something different about its eyes. They seemed to shimmer with an intelligence that made her pause. The creature didn't run away like most strays would. Instead, it tilted its head and watched her with curious amber eyes that seemed to change color in the dim light. "Hey there, little one," Emma said softly, crouching down. "Are you lost?" The creature made a strange chirping sound, unlike anything she'd heard before. It wasn't quite a meow, nor was it a typical animal noise. Yet somehow, it didn't frighten her. If anything, she felt oddly comforted by its presence. Against her better judgment, Emma reached out her hand. The rain was coming down harder now, and she couldn't bear the thought of leaving this mysterious creature to fend for itself. To her surprise, it gracefully stood up and walked toward her, revealing its full size, slightly larger than an average house cat, with unusually long legs and a tail that seemed to move with deliberate purpose. "Well, I can't leave you out here in this weather," she found herself saying. "Come on, let's get you somewhere warm and dry." The creature followed her without hesitation, climbing the stairs to her third-floor apartment as if it had done so 1,000 times before. Emma noticed it didn't leave wet pawprints like a normal cat would. In fact, its fur seemed to repel water entirely, but she was too tired to think much about it that night. She set up a makeshift bed using an old blanket and placed some tuna in a bowl, watching in amazement as her new companion delicately ate, displaying impeccable manners. "I guess I should call you something," she mused. "How about Scout? You look like a scout to me." The creature, Scout, looked up at her and made that peculiar chirping sound again, almost like an agreement. Emma smiled, not realizing that this moment marked the beginning of something far more extraordinary than she could have imagined. That night, as Emma slept, Scout sat vigilantly by her window, its form occasionally shimming with a faint, silvery light. Its eyes, now glowing with an ethereal blue tint, scanned the night sky as if searching for something. Or perhaps, watching for something. In the days that followed, Emma noticed little oddities about her new pet. Scout never needed a litter box, seemed to understand complex commands, and had an uncanny ability to anticipate her needs. If she was feeling sad, Scout would appear with her favorite book clutched gently in its mouth. If she was running late for work, Scout would somehow manage to wake her up exactly when needed. What Emma couldn't know yet, was that Scout's presence in her life was no accident. High above Earth's atmosphere, invisible to human technology, events were unfolding that would soon reveal the true nature of her unusual companion, and her role in a story far bigger than she could imagine. But for now, Emma was simply grateful for the company, blissfully unaware that her gentle, mysterious pet was actually the most sophisticated guardian entity ever assigned to protect a human being. 3 months after Scout came into Emma's life, the first truly inexplicable event occurred. Emma was walking home from her late shift at the library, with Scout padding silently beside her. She had gotten used to the strange looks from passers-by, after all, who walked their cat on the street. But Scout had insisted on accompanying her everywhere, and somehow she knew it was important to let him. The street was unusually dark that night, with several lampposts mysteriously burned out. Emma clutched her bag closer, feeling uneasy about the shadows. Suddenly, Scout stopped walking and let out a low, harmonic sound she'd never heard before, almost like a musical note rather than an animal noise. Before Emma could react, a car came speeding around the corner, its headlights off, swerving erratically across the road. It was heading straight for the sidewalk where they stood. Time seemed to slow down as Emma felt herself being pushed, lifted, several feet backward by an invisible force. She watched in astonishment as the car passed through the exact spot where she had been standing moments before, missing her by inches. When she caught her breath and looked down, Scout was sitting calmly beside her, those mysterious eyes now glowing with an unmistakable blue light. The glow faded quickly, but Emma knew she hadn't imagined it. "Scout," she whispered, "what are you?" The strange cat simply chirped and began walking home as if nothing had happened, leaving Emma to follow with her mind racing. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea, watching Scout, who sat in his usual spot by the window. The moonlight seemed to ripple across his silvery fur in impossible patterns. Emma opened her laptop and began researching mysterious pets, alien encounters, and unexplained phenomena. As she scrolled through various websites, Scout suddenly perked up and stared intently at her ceiling. A moment later, all the electronics in her apartment flickered, her laptop, the lights, even her digital clock, and then went dead. Through her kitchen window, she saw similar blackouts spreading across other buildings in the neighborhood. But what caught her attention wasn't the darkness, it was the brief shimmer of something massive moving across the night sky, something that seemed to bend the starlight around it. Scout stood up, fur bristling with what looked like tiny sparks of electricity. The creature's form seemed to shift slightly, becoming more angular, more metallic, before returning to its familiar feline appearance. Emma reached for her phone to take a picture, but Scout gently placed a paw on her hand and made a soft trilling sound that somehow conveyed a clear message, "Not yet." The power came back on a few minutes later, and the local news would later report it as a simple grid malfunction. But Emma knew better. She had seen something that night, something that challenged everything she thought she knew about the world, and about her peculiar pet. The next morning, Emma found a strange marking on her apartment door, a series of geometric shapes that seemed to glow faintly in the early light. By the time she returned from work, the marking had vanished. But she noticed Scout sitting a little straighter, watching the skies a little more intently, as if waiting for something. That evening, while preparing dinner, Emma heard Scout making an unusual series of clicks and whistles. She turned to find him sitting in front of her old radio, which suddenly crackled to life despite being unplugged. Through the static, she caught fragments of what sounded like words in an impossible language, and Scout was responding to them. Emma realized she was standing at the edge of a mystery far deeper than she could have imagined. Her beloved pet was clearly more than just an unusual stray, but just how much more, and why had Scout chosen her? The answers would come sooner than she expected, and they would change her life forever. The truth began to unravel on a quiet Sunday morning, exactly 4 months after Scout had entered Emma's life. She woke to find Scout sitting at the foot of her bed, his form flickering like a hologram. Instead of his usual silvery fur, his body now appeared to be made of flowing metallic segments, each piece shifting and reorganizing itself while maintaining his cat-like shape. "I believe it's time we talked properly," Scout said, his voice a gentle blend of electronic tones and organic warmth. Emma sat up in bed, her heart racing but somehow not afraid. Perhaps she had always known, deep down, that this moment would come. "You can talk," she managed to say, gripping her blanket tightly. "I can do many things," Scout replied, his form stabilizing into something that looked like a cat made of liquid metal. "I am what your people might call an artificial intelligence, though that term barely scratches the surface of what I am. My true name is untranslatable in your language, but Scout works just fine." Emma took a deep breath, trying to process this revelation. "Why me?" she asked. "Why have you been protecting me?" Scout's form rippled with soft blue light. "You were chosen, Emma. Among all humans, you possess a unique genetic marker, one that makes you crucial to the future of both our species. There are others watching Earth, not all of them friendly. I was sent to be your guardian." As if to emphasize his point, Scout projected a three-dimensional hologram into the air between them. Emma watched in amazement as images of distant stars and strange spacecraft danced before her eyes. She saw beings of pure energy, worlds with impossible geometries, and civilizations that defied human understanding. There's a council of advanced species, Scout explained, his voice gentle as he showed her more images. They've been monitoring Earth's development for centuries. Humanity is approaching a crucial turning point, a moment when your species will either transcend its limitations or destroy itself. And you, Emma, carry a genetic sequence that could help humanity navigate this transition. Emma laughed nervously. Me? But I'm just a librarian. I can barely keep my plants alive. Your ordinary life was by design, Scout said, his form shifting back to his familiar cat appearance. We needed you to develop naturally, without the burden of knowing your importance. But now things are changing. The others are coming, and you need to be prepared. Before Emma could ask who the others were, her entire apartment began to vibrate. Scout's ears perked up, and his eyes narrowed. They're early, he muttered, mostly to himself. The morning sunlight outside her window dimmed, as if something massive was passing between Earth and the sun. Scout quickly moved to Emma's side, his form beginning to expand and change. Don't be afraid, he said, as his body grew to the size of a small car, still maintaining feline features but now clearly mechanical in nature. I won't let them harm you. Through her window, Emma could see strange lights in the sky, not the simple UFOs of science fiction, but complex geometric patterns that seemed to fold through dimensions she couldn't quite perceive. Her phone, computer, and every other electronic device in the apartment began to emit a high-pitched tone. The next few days will change everything, Scout said, his voice now resonating with power. But remember, Emma, I chose to be your guardian not just because of my mission, but because I saw in you what my people hope to see in all of humanity: kindness, curiosity, and the capacity for understanding beyond your current limitations. As the lights in the sky grew brighter and the vibrations more intense, Emma realized her quiet life was about to become anything but ordinary. Yet somehow, with Scout by her side, she felt ready to face whatever was coming. Her mysterious pet had become something far more extraordinary, not just a guardian, but a bridge between her world and the vast, unknown reaches of the cosmos. The entire city went dark. Every car stopped, every phone died, and an eerie silence fell over the streets. Inside Emma's apartment, Scout's metallic form glowed with a soft blue light, providing the only illumination in the darkness. His transformed body now took up most of her living room, his mechanical tail curled protectively around her. There are two factions approaching, Scout explained, his voice carrying a new urgency. The Guardians, my people, and the Harvesters. The Harvesters believe that emerging civilizations should be harvested for their potential, rather than allowed to develop naturally. Through her window, Emma watched as 5 distinct shapes descended from the clouds. They looked like massive crystals, each one shifting and changing color as they moved. The air itself seemed to bend around them, and Emma felt a strange pressure in her head, as if reality was being stretched thin. Your genetic marker, Scout continued, contains a code that could help humanity advance peacefully. The Harvesters want to extract it forcefully, which would harm you and potentially corrupt the very thing that makes it special. We can't let that happen. Suddenly, a beam of golden light shot down from one of the crystal ships, creating a perfect circle on the street below. From this circle rose 3 figures that made Emma's eyes hurt when she tried to focus on them. They seemed to be made of flowing light and geometric patterns, constantly shifting and changing. Those are the Guardians, Scout said, his mechanical form humming with energy. They're creating a barrier around us. The Harvesters will. Before he could finish, the air split open with a sound like shattering glass. Through this tear in reality stepped creatures that looked like moving shadows, their forms barely contained within humanoid shapes. Their presence made the temperature drop dramatically, and frost began forming on Emma's windows. Don't look directly at them, Scout warned, positioning himself between Emma and the window. Their true form can overwhelm human senses. Emma's head was spinning with questions, but she forced herself to focus. "What do we do now?" she asked, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "We make a choice," Scout replied. "The Guardians can take us to safety, where you can learn about your genetic gift gradually and help humanity progress naturally. Or what? Or we try something unprecedented." Scout's mechanical eyes turned to meet hers. "We could attempt to merge our technologies, your genetic code and my advanced systems. It's never been done before, but it might create a bridge between our civilizations. It's dangerous, though. The merge might not work, and the harvesters would certainly try to stop us." Outside, the shadow creatures were engaged in what looked like a deadly dance with the beings of light. Streets cracked, cars floated into the air, and reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. Emma thought about her life before Scout, ordinary, safe, predictable. She thought about all the books she'd read at the library about heroes and choices and destiny. Now, faced with her own moment of truth, she found her answer came surprisingly easily. "I trust you, Scout," she said, placing her hand on his metallic form. "You've been protecting me all this time. If there's a chance we can help both our peoples, I want to try." Scout's form brightened with what seemed like pride. "It will be dangerous," he warned. "The merge will take time, and the harvesters will do everything they can to stop it." "Then we'd better get started," Emma said, feeling braver than she ever had before. "What do I need to do?" Scout's body began to transform again, opening like a blossoming flower made of living metal. "Place your hand on my core," he instructed. "The process will begin automatically. No matter what happens, remember, your compassion is what makes you special, not just your genes." As Emma reached out toward Scout's glowing core, the shadow creatures outside noticed what they were doing. Their forms twisted violently as they began moving toward her building. The beings of light rushed to intercept them, and the battle for humanity's future began in earnest. The moment Emma's hand touched Scout's glowing core, the world around her transformed. It felt like diving into a pool of warm light, but instead of water, she was surrounded by pure information. Scout's consciousness merged with hers, and suddenly she could see everything he could see. The shadow creatures, the harvesters, were more terrifying through Scout's enhanced perception. They weren't just shadows, they were tears in reality itself, beings that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Their very presence was causing damage to the fabric of spacetime around her building. "Stay focused," Scout's voice echoed in her mind. "Let the merge happen naturally. Don't fight the information flow." Through their connected consciousness, Emma began to understand things that had been beyond human comprehension. She saw the vast network of Guardian outposts scattered throughout the galaxy, watching over thousands of developing civilizations. She witnessed the eternal dance between progress and preservation, between growth and protection. The merge was changing Scout too. His mechanical form began to pulse with new patterns, ones that matched Emma's own genetic code. Gold and silver light swirled around them both, creating a cocoon of energy that filled her entire apartment. Outside, the battle raged. The guardian beings of light were creating complex geometric shields, trying to hold back the harvesters. But the shadow creatures were strong, feeding off the fear and confusion of the city's awakening population. People were coming out of their homes, pointing at the sky, recording with phones that couldn't capture what was really happening. "Something's wrong," Emma said, feeling a disturbance in the merge. "The harvesters, they're trying to interfere with the process." Scout's consciousness wrapped more tightly around hers, protective as always. "They're attempting to corrupt the merge. Your genetic code is trying to adapt, but the strain is enormous. We need to complete the process faster." Emma felt a sharp pain in her head as the harvesters launched a psychic attack. Through their merged awareness, she could feel them trying to tear apart the connection between her and Scout. But they had underestimated something crucial. the bond that had formed between Emma and Scout wasn't just technological or genetic. It was emotional, built on months of trust and friendship. "Remember when you found me in the rain?" Scout's voice came through the pain. "I chose you before I even knew about the genetic marker. I saw your kindness, your willingness to help a strange creature without asking for anything in return. That's humanity's true potential." Emma held onto those memories, letting them strengthen the merge. She remembered every morning Scout had woken her for work, every evening they'd spent together, every moment of quiet companionship. The pain began to fade as their merger grew stronger, more complete. The Harvesters launched a final, desperate attack. 3 of them broke through the Guardians' defenses, their shadow forms reaching toward Emma's window. But the moment they touched the cocoon of energy surrounding Emma and Scout, something unexpected happened. The genetic code in Emma's DNA, combined with Scout's advanced technology, created a new kind of energy. It rippled outward in waves of golden light, carrying with it a simple but powerful message, one of harmony between organic and artificial life, of cooperation instead of conquest. The Harvesters recoiled, their shadow forms destabilizing as they came into contact with this new energy. They hadn't expected this. Their whole existence was based on the belief that advanced civilizations needed to guide, or control, the development of younger ones. But here was proof of another way. As the merge neared completion, Emma and Scout's combined consciousness reached out to both the Guardians and the Harvesters. Through their connection, they could show both sides a vision of the future, one where humanity's potential could be reached through cooperation and mutual understanding, not through force or control. The golden energy continued to pulse outward, touching everything in its path, changing not by destroying, but by revealing new possibilities. And at its center, Emma and Scout were becoming something entirely new, something that would change the course of both human and alien history forever. The golden energy that had emerged from Emma and Scout's merger continued to expand, touching everything in its path. As it spread across the city, something remarkable began to happen. Instead of causing destruction or chaos, it created understanding. Every human touched by the energy gained a momentary glimpse of the greater universe, not enough to overwhelm them, but enough to awaken a sense of wonder and possibility. Emma and Scout's combined form had stabilized into something beautiful and unprecedented. They remained physically separate, Emma still human, Scout still in his mechanical feline form, but they were connected by streams of flowing golden light. Through their shared consciousness, they could perceive reality on multiple levels simultaneously. "The Harvesters are retreating," Emma observed, watching as the shadow creatures pulled back from the golden energy. Their dark forms seemed less threatening now, more curious than hostile. Through their merged perception, Emma could sense confusion and surprise radiating from them. "They're experiencing something new," Scout explained, his voice resonating both in the air and in Emma's mind. "Our merger has shown them a possibility they never considered, that evolution can be guided by cooperation rather than control." The guardian beings of light approached Emma's apartment, their geometric forms pulsing with what felt like approval. One of them separated from the group and moved closer, its light dimming to a gentle glow that was easier for human eyes to perceive. "You have achieved what we long thought impossible," the guardian communicated, its thoughts translating into words in Emma's mind. "A true symbiosis between organic and artificial life, between developing and advanced civilizations. This changes everything." Through their merged consciousness, Emma and Scout began to understand the full implications of what they had created. The golden energy wasn't just a defensive measure, it was a bridge, a new way of sharing knowledge and understanding between different forms of life. The Harvester shadows had gathered at a distance, their forms shifting with uncertainty. Emma and Scout reached out to them together, sharing their experience of friendship and trust. To everyone's surprise, the Harvesters responded, their shadowy forms becoming less chaotic, more defined. "We have existed for millennia," the Harvesters communicated, their thoughts carrying ancient weariness. always believing that young civilizations needed to be controlled, shaped, harvested. But this is something we never imagined possible. The city below was coming back to life. The power had returned, and people were emerging from their homes. But they weren't panicking at the sight of aliens above their city. The golden energy had left them with a sense of peace and understanding. They knew, somehow, that they were witnessing a turning point in human history. Emma felt Scout's consciousness gently guiding her attention to the changes happening within herself. The genetic marker that had made her special wasn't just a code, it was a key, unlocking humanity's potential for peaceful advancement. Combined with Scout's advanced technology, it had created a template for future evolution. The other humans with similar genetic markers will begin to awaken now, Scout explained. Not all at once, but gradually. Each will have the potential to bridge different aspects of human and alien civilization. You were just the first. The guardian beings began to spread out across the city, their light forms creating a protective network above the buildings. But it was different from before, not just protection, but partnership. The harvesters, too, were changing position, their shadow forms aligning with the guardian's light in a complex dance of balance. It's like a new kind of immune system for Earth, Emma realized, watching through their shared perception. Not to keep things out, but to help integration happen safely. Scout's mechanical form hummed with approval. Exactly. And we'll be here to help guide the process. That is, if you're willing to continue this partnership? Emma smiled, feeling the warm connection between them pulse stronger. Their merger had changed them both, but it hadn't erased who they were. If anything, it had made them more themselves, just better together than apart. 1 year had passed since the day that changed everything. Emma sat in her apartment, watching the sunset through her window while Scout rested beside her, his mechanical form shifting between his original cat appearance and his true crystalline structure. The city below them had changed in subtle but significant ways. Scattered throughout the skyline, elegant crystalline towers now rose between the human buildings, joint research centers where humans worked alongside both guardians and reformed harvesters. The golden energy from Emma and Scout's merger had evolved into a permanent network, visible only to those attuned to it, connecting everyone who chose to be part of Earth's new chapter. Another successful integration today, Emma said, scrolling through reports on her new quantum tablet, technology born from the cooperation between humans and aliens. 3 more people with the genetic marker have bonded with guardian partners. Scout's form shimmered with pleasure. Each bond is unique, he replied, his voice carrying both pride and wisdom. Just like ours was. The harvester's knowledge of genetic science, combined with guardian technology and human creativity, has opened possibilities we never imagined. They had learned much over the past year. The genetic marker wasn't just random chance, it was nature's way of preparing humanity for the next step in their evolution. But unlike the harvester's original plan for forced advancement, this evolution was happening organically, driven by choice and understanding. Emma's role had evolved too. As the first successful human-guardian merger, she and Scout had become teachers, helping others understand and adapt to their new reality. Their bond had grown stronger, deeper, yet they maintained their individual identities, proving that true partnership didn't require the loss of self. Remember when I thought you were just a strange cat? Emma laughed, reaching out to touch Scout's crystalline form. The familiar warm connection flowed between them, their consciousness linking seamlessly. And I thought I was just going to be your silent guardian, Scout replied, his form shifting to nuzzle against her hand. I never expected to find a true partner. Through their shared perception, they watched the golden network pulse with activity. All around the world, more people were awakening to their potential, forming bonds with guardian partners, and helping to bridge the gap between Earth and the cosmos. The harvesters, once bent on controlling evolution, had become students of this new way, learning that guidance could be gentle rather than forceful. The council is meeting tomorrow, Scout reminded her, referring to the New Earth Guardian Harvester Alliance that helped manage the integration process. They want us to share our story again, for the new arrivals. Emma nodded, feeling ready. Their story had become a symbol of hope, not just for humanity, but for countless developing civilizations across the galaxy. It proved that advancement didn't have to come through conflict or control, but through understanding and choice. Looking out at her city, Emma could see the subtle shimmer of Guardian ships in orbit, now a comforting presence rather than a threat. The shadow forms of reformed harvesters drifted between dimensions, helping to stabilize the increasing flow of energy between Earth and space. Everything had changed, yet the core of what made them human remained intact, their capacity for love, for growth, for acceptance of the unknown. "We should visit the park," Scout suggested, shifting back into his cat form. "The quantum flowers are blooming tonight." Emma smiled, knowing that to most people in the park, they would look like any other person walking their cat. But to those who could see, those touched by the golden energy, they were a reminder that the most extraordinary changes could come from the simplest beginnings. As they walked through their transformed world together, Emma realized that Scout had never really stopped being her pet, he had simply become more. Their bond, born from a simple act of kindness on a rainy night, had opened the door to humanity's greatest adventure. And it was just the beginning. The story of the cat who wasn't a cat, and the librarian who helped change the universe, would be told for generations across the stars. But for Emma and Scout, it would always be, at its heart, a simple tale of friendship, trust, and the infinite possibilities that arise when different worlds choose to come together in harmony.